Top of the day, beautiful people. Jamia, hey girl, hey. I'll give you some water. All right. Happy Tuesday, beautiful people. Animalistic nature, shalom, shalom, dawn. Good morning, good morning. Sorry for my tardiness this morning, y'all. Kids are like all night. I had to call my sister. I'm like, girl, is this what is going around? All of them, at least the 4 small babies and Elijah. Whatever this is going around, they was like up all night, all of them running temperatures and stuff. And I'm half sleeping, getting up. They waking up in the middle of the night. Bella puked all over my truck yesterday. I'm like, oh my God. So me in and out of sleep and stuff, I overslept. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So everything is everybody's sleeping right now for the most part. I think everybody's temperature is under control. You know, I double checked everybody before I came back down here this morning. But everybody's good. So, and I just took some I was taking stuff yesterday just to make sure. You know how sometimes you can feel something trying to come on. I was like, yep, nope, ain't got time for this. And I just took some of them think drops. Simply because of the peppermint, it literally just goes through and burn up any kind of mucus or whatever. You can like breathe deep down from your sha-na-na. I just took some of that just a second ago. I feel this whole pepperminty like tornado coming through me. It's crazy, y'all. Yeah, but I don't know. My grandbabies, whatever this is, my grandbabies bought that crap over here this weekend when they came. Everybody was fine. My house rarely ever gets sick. Shut the last time I got sick was when I caught COVID. It's been almost 2 years now. Oh my gosh. So yeah. Write this down. Yeah, so but whatever it is, I don't think it's like they said it's like another strand of COVID or something going around. But when I called my sister, she was saying she's seeing more. Well, they're seeing more people with the flu coming in, you know, because the symptoms kind of mimic it or whatever. But they're saying most of what they're saying is like the flu, although some people are popping positive on COVID tests or whatever. But yeah, so hope everybody stays safe. Keep wearing your mask if you go around other people. So we're gonna be quarantined here for a couple of days so they get over whatever this is. So, but anyway, let's get started. Brian Jogi, peace. Auntie Belinda Brown, hey girl, hey. Shebrew, hey girl, hey. Vanette, hey girl, hey. Elijah Grant Rising, Lavon, blessings. Tabitha, remember Keon Cooper, y'all. In the chat is Tabitha. She's using her son account. Greetings, beloved. Set apart living, Ema Grand Rising. Key, hey girl, hey, blessings. Sakar, Yahoo, shalom, shalom. Your husband believe he has COVID. Listen, let me tell y'all what works. At least the last strand did. Like, and I realized it like the butt end of me being sick. Get some Mucinex. I keep some in the house now. Hold on, I'm gonna show you. Mucinex has a couple different ones, right? This will help with like congestion and the mucus. Now I know I be going fully natural, but I'm about to tell you, you're going to juice, but take this in conjunction with it. I ain't giving any kind of medical advice, but I'm just saying, at least what happened, what worked for me. I wish I had known it at the beginning of it. And I did pop 2 of these yesterday too, just in case. I'm like, I ain't got time for the crap. But this, and juice you some citrus fruits, oranges, grapefruits, put some lemon in it too. If you can stand ginger, put some ginger in it. It's like a mucus buster. And do that and fast. Only drink that fresh water and take these shucks. After about a day, I noticed, and everybody that I recommended to, I was like, I'm not saying that this is the cure all, but this is what worked. And at least 3 people, since the time I've got sick, 1, 2, 3, no, four people that I shared with them, taking this and juicing the citrus fruits. Don't eat nothing else. Like, don't eat no food. Like, fast. Drink water. Get that juice, the fresh juice, like freshly squeezed, and take this. You can take this. It's like what? Like 2 every 4 hours. But within 24 hours, you can feel whatever it is breaking up and getting rid of it. In like 2 days, they up moving around again. So that's, it's my recommendation for people with COVID symptoms. That's, and it's still working. Because the most recent person, it's probably about a month ago, like the 4th person that I recommended it to, they said, oh my gosh, this really works. So, but just in case you didn't know, BC, shalom, my deem, shalom, love and light. What's this? Oh no, I said, hey. Dreadful Cosma, Infinite Rising. All right, beautiful people. So let's get started. You know what? I got to think of 2 new ones because I forget. I was like, oh, these is good. So Father, we thank you. First of all, let me just thank you for healing properties in nature. Yes, I like that. Oh, that's something I was doing for them too. I'm like, of course, juicing for them. That helps. So, but yeah, it's good to kind of catch things before it get too far. You can keep it under control. Ema said another thing to drink is mullein leaf tea. It will clean your lungs out. That's good. Take notes to that, y'all. Mullein leaf tea. I ain't got none of that. All right, y'all. So let's get started. Page 44, chapter 3 in Oahspe. We're in Book of Ashong, son of Jehovah. Up to this time, the ancient names of the divisions of the lands of the earth had been maintained, and God and his lords, being driven from the place of Horeb, which had gone in dissolution, dwelt part of the time in Waga and part in Jud and Vohu. And God and the Lord had established 3 kingdoms, one in Waga, one in Jud, one in Vohu, and within these kingdoms of heaven there were 200 million of redeemed angels capable of the second resurrection, and 100 million Esians and unlearned apprentices. So remember these places. Jud is what? Hold on. Page 17. I remember the page. Okay, Jud is Asia. Thori is America. Vohu is Africa. Dis is Europe. And Waga is another name for Pan, right? Okay. I'm back to page 44, verse 2. Verse 2. And God and the Lords had established 3 kingdoms, one in Waga, one in Jud, and one in Vohu. And within these kingdoms of heaven, there were 200 million of redeemed angels capable of the second resurrection, and 100 million Esians and unlearned apprentices. Chief of the 3 heavens was Waga, and thither had God and his lords congregated with their chief officers as soon as the sign of the descending sea of Jehovah's kingdom appeared in the firmament above. To God, Jehovah spake, saying, Make ready thy places, O my son, and thy lords with thee. Behold, I come in a world of fire, and my faithful workers shall find rest and happiness. Ashong will redeem thy sons and daughters. Yea, he will girdle the earth about with new Ethereal light and great power. Call together thy people, O God, and bid them rejoice and make merry, for the time of deliverance is at hand. Then God communicated to the Lords, and they again to others, the words of Jehovah. And at sight of the sign in heaven, and at sight of the sign in heaven, the faithful began to rejoice and to gather together in their respective places. But of the unbelieving angels dwelling on earth and with mortals and other abodes, of whom there were hundreds of millions, this is what happened. They were overcome by the sight of the ship of fire in heaven above, and in fear fled in all directions, and by their great numbers, in the presence of mortals, caused mortals also to fear and flee in search of some secure place. And many of these spirits of darkness came beseechingly to be admitted into the kingdoms of the Lords, whether they had been invited for hundreds of years, but would not come. But God and the Lords encompassed their places about with walls of light and would not receive the unbelieving. God said, till such time as Ashong shall arrive, let order be maintained within my kingdoms. So it came to pass that for 6 days and nights, the fear that prevailed on earth and in heaven was such as had never been seen before since the earth was. And God and the Lords brought their Esenars out, and they sang and danced before Jehovah. And on the approach of Ashong's host, with his musicians and heralds, and the great multitude arrayed in shining raiment, even God and the Lords were overcome by the splendor and magnificence. They sat down on the improvised throne, and the Ethereal marshals approached and divided, first into single columns, then double, then quadruple, and so on. The 50,000 marshals had enclosed all sides, save the east, where was an open space through which Ashon came, attended by his chief counselors, of which there were 5,000. After these came the council of 1,000,000, interbroken here and there with groups of thousands of Esenars who were chanting hymns of praise to Jehovah and his kingdoms. The lower heaven above the continent of Waga and parts of Jud and Vohu was illuminated by the hosts of Ashong, the like of which had never been in atmosphere before, nor was there any more work being done on earth or in heaven because of the fear and great stirring up. But now Ashong approached before the throne of God and the Lord's, saluting with the sign of the second degree of Jehovah, saying, in Jehovah's name and by his power, wisdom, and love, I am come to give you joy. God said, in Jehovah's name, all hail, Ashon, chief of Anachron, all hail. And God went forward to the foot of the throne and received Ashon, whereupon the Lords came forward, saluting also. The Esenars ceased singing, and Ashon proceeded to the throne and sat thereon. And God took off his own crown and gave it to Ashon, and also gave him the triangle, which was called the heirloom of the heavenly kingdoms of earth, bestowed by command of Jehovah. Verse 14, page 45. The all light, which is another name for a creator, the all light was abundant around about Ashon, and the voice of Jehovah spake out of the midst thereof, saying, inasmuch as these things are done in my name, prayerfully and in faith, so do I dwell with you all. My son shall wear thy crown, O God. Behold, I am come in might and swiftness, for it is the springtime of the earth. My son Cephas is afoot on the earth, he hath stirred up the earthborn, but I will establish anew my light in these heavens. This is interesting. I just thought about the ladies' video on Sunday and everything when they were talking about the equinox and all that stuff. And it's talking about like the springtime. I'm gonna read this again. Behold, verse 15, behold, I am coming might and swiftness, for it is the springtime of the earth. My son Cephas is afoot on the earth. He hath stirred up the earthborn, but I will establish anew my light in these heavens. Have I not said, I brought the seed of everlasting life to the earth? I gave God and his lords to teach mortals and spirits of my glories in the upper heavens. And I commanded that they come up out of the earth. Hold on. And I commanded that they that come up out of the earth should be my God and my Lord and my lords in these realms. Ye were installed by my hand and have done a good work. Think not that I curse because Horeb and Moab are fallen. Knew I not beforehand that these things would be? Behold, I have provided all my works so that man should be forever making new things. Had Horeb stood, there had been no heaven to rebuild on earth in this day. How then could my newborn gods learn? Think not that I come to teach with mine own labor. I provide my people that they shall teach one another. That's good, right? So remember, yeah, the ladies' video when they were talking about this, and but this is a different topic. We were talking about how the 200, the 400, the 600, the cycles and stuff, right? And the graduation. But I had made a comment because how I understand it is that the gods, that there are multiple gods in each cycle, and they're like constantly learning. Everybody's forever progressing and learning. So everybody gets up with the different gods that change at 2, 4, 600, so on years. It just depends on what's going on in that particular what is it, Dan or Danha? I might be getting them mixed up. Just depends on what's going on that will determine how long each God rules, whether it's 200 years or 400 years, or this next one gets 600 years or 900 years, whatever. You know, it just depends on what happens there will determine how long. But as they graduate a little bit higher, they're also learning. They're in a higher position where they begin to answer the prayers or the requests of the current God that's on the throne, because they just left that. So if they need help, this next position that they move to after they leave the position of God, they're talking to them and they're in communication. Okay, so boom, check this out. When I was there, such and such, think about this. So they still learning, they're working with one another as everybody rise. That's what I thought about. Miss Hannah, shalom, shalom. Could the triangle be the pyramid like the ones on the earth? Elijah said. It's possible. Anita, greetings. It's possible. I thought about that, and this talks about the pyramids, but I don't know. I don't know. It could be. It could. You know, when this first, I forget which page before I start flipping back, but when it first, I want to say it's in the book of Jehovah where we first saw the triangle. I think that's the first time. And I don't think I like made an asterisk so I can go right to it where it was. It'll take me a little while. But it explained but it could. You know how sometimes some things it has like multiple revelations for it. And I don't see why not. But don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on it. Okay, so let me go back. Oh, something caught my eye. On page 11 in the book of Jehovah, we was just talking about it. It's talking about the rankings of the gods, chapter 7, book of Jehovah, and it's going through like the gods, the chiefs, and the okay, and the time of my harvest shall be according to each Dan. Okay, it was Dan, which is two. I was thinking Dan or Dan Ha. Each Dan, which is 200 years, 400 years, 600 years, and 500 years. And these shall be called my lesser cycles, because they are the time. They are the times of the tables of prophecy which I give unto my servants. See. Okay. That's good. I saw that. That way I can flip back to that. I see my little note on the side. Okay. The triangle is worn around the neck. Yeah. Could you please read verse 13? Okay. Okay. We'll just go back to 13. Okay. On page 45, y'all. God said, in Jehovah's name, all hail. Ashong, chief of Anachron, all hail. And God went forth to the foot of the throne and received Ashong, whereupon the lords came forward, saluting also. The Esenars ceased singing, and Ashong proceeded to the throne and sat thereon. And God took off his own crown and gave it to Ashong, and also gave him the triangle, which was called the heirloom of the heavenly kingdoms of earth, bestowed by command of Jehovah. All right, so yeah, if anybody remembers exactly where this gives us a little bit more information, like I said, I want to say definitely it's in the book of Jehovah. I want to say, don't quote me. Sign of fire cross. That's a sign of Jehovah. Um, Corporal, second resurrection. It's in here, and I could be looking. Hold on. Oh, page 31. Okay. I hold on, let me put triangle. Triangle. Okay. Go to it's in Sathantes. Go to the book of Sathantes, page 31. Um no, go back a little bit. I mean, chapter 19 and all the way back to verse 5. Yeah, verse 5. Let me just make sure. Yeah. 5 is where we first see the triangle. Okay. I mean verse 6. But I'm going to read verse 5. Okay. On page 30, chapter 19, book of Sathantes, it says, Haja said, Thy son, O Jehovah, hath shaped the destiny of a world. Great is his glory. A light of golden hue gathered above the throne and took the form of a triangle, and there was a graven image at every corner, the which, when read, was IOD, and it was in the character of Waga, bestowed by the Lord on the altars in the house of worship on the earth, and its value was 33 million, which was the exact number prepared for the emancipated heaven in Ethera, and the 33 was the years of a generation of mortals. God said, Jehovah is one, the living is one, and that inanimate corpore is one, and these three are the entirety. So as creator, which is Jehovah. God said, Jehovah is one, the living is one, inanimate corpore is one, and these three are the entirety. To teach mortals this, O Haja, is to give wisdom to the earth. Take thou this triangle, O thou Son, the Most High, and as long as Cephas endureth on the earth, it shall be the bequeathed heirloom of heaven, descending from God to God that occupieth the throne. And Jehovah is one, the living is one, inanimate corpore is one. So I want to say the living is talking about our spirit, right? And not just our spirit, but like the Ashars in that realm, everybody in the spiritual realm already without flesh. So creator, the spirit, and flesh, right? Them three. God said, verse 7, God said, Jehovah is one, the living is one. Remember, because our spirits are eternal, we live always. God said, Jehovah is one, the living is one, inanimate corpore is one, which is inanimate corpore is our flesh. And these three are the entirety. To teach mortals this, O Haja, is to give wisdom to the earth. Take thou this triangle, O thou, Son of the Most High, and as long as Cephas endureth on the earth, it shall be the bequeathed heirloom of heaven, descending from God to God that occupieth the throne. Thereupon God stretcheth forth his hands, and the triangle became fixed and solid, and God hung it on Haja's neck, adding, in the name of Jehovah, receive thou this jewel as my parting testimony. Remember that when mortals are raised up to understand this symbol of three in one, then will Cosmon begin to dawn on the earth, which is just like Oahspe. Oahspe, O is sky. Am I get that right? Sky. Ah is earth, and Spe is spirit. Sky, earth, and spirit. It's like another whole revelation. You know, you can see it on multiple levels. Sky, earth, and spirit. Father or creator, spirit, flesh, man, woman, child. It's like you can see this triangle in everything. Hold on. Yeah, right. Wisdom, power, and love. Because they always say that too, right? Wisdom, power, and love. Yeah, you're right, Jamil. Okay. We're right now. Um, we went back to Book of Sathanti, Son of Jehovah, page 31, chapter 19, and we started at verse 5. But right now we're on verse 8. I'm gonna reread verse 8, and then I think I'm gonna go to the end of verse 9, and then we'll go back and pick up where we were at. That's right, animalistic nature. Bragg's apple cider vinegar breaks down mucus and helps to alkalize the body. You're right. I got some of that. My kids ain't going for that. When I give them that, when I really want them to have some of that, like if it's a need for it, like if they really got a lot of mucus, I have to juice apples and get like a half a cup full, not cup full, I'm sorry, the cap, half a cap full, and add it in there to mask the taste of it, you know, and it works like that. So I have to do that maybe like 3 times a day or twice, 2 to 3 times a day, for them to get that all in. Cause they were like, I taste that. What is this? So I'm like, I gotta be a little bit smarter than that. So let me decrease the apple cider just a little bit. So I was doing capfuls and then I just cut that in half. So, but yeah, you're right. It works. Um, all right, verse 8, page 31. Thereupon God stretched forth his hand, and the triangle became fixed and solid. And God hung it on Hajar's neck, adding, in the name of Jehovah, receive thou this jewel as my parting testimony. Remember that when mortals are raised up to understand this symbol of 3 in 1, then will Cosmon begin to dawn on the earth. Hajar said, O God, thou symbol of the 3 attributes. Jamil, right? It's right here. Haja said, hold on, let me highlight it. Good thinking, y'all. Good thinking. This is why it's great to work together in teams. I need you, you need me, we need each other. Listen, verse 9, Haja said, O God, thou symbol of the 3 attributes, love, wisdom, and power, thou didst leave thy stately home where thou hadst gods and goddesses for companions and come to the far off earth, which was young and curtained round with poisonous gases to guard the young and imperfect angels of other worlds in their wanderings forth with thy wisdom, love, and power concealed. Thou didst give them liberty and yet redeemed them. Thou hast stretched forth thy hand over the earth and made it to yield souls to glorify the Creator. And yet, in all the while, thou hast never quoted thyself. Oh, that this could be taught to angels and men. Who is it that will not trip or mention himself or make himself a manifested self? This was good. I remember this when we read this portion. Last week. Yeah, we read through that part, I think early last week. Okay, yeah, so that's the first mention of the triangle, the representation. Hold on. The representation of the 3 in 1 here on the earth and what it represents. Which now that I'm reading this, especially in verse 9 where it says, thou didst leave thy stately home, where thou hadst gods and goddesses for companions, and come to the far off earth, which was young and curtained round about with poisonous gases, to guard the young and imperfect angels of other worlds in their wanderings forth, and with thy wisdom, love, and power concealed. That put me in the mind of in the New Testament, not, you know what, you don't see this. You just hear pastors saying this or some teachers, but there's not a specific place, now that I think about it, in the New Testament where because you know how they trying to explain the cross, right? And they say, well, God came down from his throne and he came down and walked amongst men. That whole thing right there. This right here puts me in the mind of that, but we clearly know that it's not creator. that left his throne. And if a God did leave off his throne, which we see, right, does happen, especially when something is about to take place, they put a proxy in place, a sub God, and they sit on the throne, and they actually leave their throne and they travel about all the earth to see what's going on, taking note and stuff, So that kind of put me in the mind of that. And I wonder now, like I said, the Bible to me now that I know a lot more than what I previously had known, it's a compilation of a lot of things, and it's like the bigger story condensed down, and it's put together in such a way that it creates another story if you don't read anything else, right? But when you begin to read other things, it begins to bring some light on certain situations, and it begins to separate the truth from the error, and you begin to ask more questions like, wait a minute, so now that I know this, right, here's a whole nother thing that's happening, right? Especially when we learn about the sacrifices. That was if y'all was with me when I first started mentioning, say something is wrong about the sacrifices, y'all. I can't quite put my finger on it. This was a few years ago. I was like, these sacrifices just won't let me go. Something is wrong with the priesthood here, right? And come to find out, a year later, I would find out the answer. First of all, they were never ever supposed to be doing sacrifices, slaughtering animals. These are the false gods who have gotten out of line, and their Israel has gotten off, right? And not all of Israel, but the majority of Israel had gotten off. And it was the prophets, right? Jeremiah, Isaiah. It was them who had stood to the original ways of the creator, and they was always coming back, hard-headed Israel, why do you keep turning away? Put away these things and all of this stuff, right? So as you learn this other information, that becomes clearer. And Israel were once called faithists, and the prophets are true faithists indeed, if you want to call them that, right? They keep changing the name of Israel throughout time. Israel is the latest name that they have, right? But before, while they were in, they didn't get the name Israel until they got into Egypt, right? Okay, so let's go back to where we were at. Back in the book of Asham, page 45, and we'll reread verse 13 again. We had 32 minutes, but I was a few minutes late, so we'll go a few minutes. Plus, I'm gonna be here for a couple of days. Mom, shalom, shalom. Yahweh, shalom, shalom. Jamil said, I just read about wisdom, power, and love last night in the humane gospel of Yeshua. I was so hyped. I had never heard about that. I'm going to have to look into that. If you got a link, Jamil, send it to me, sis. Send it to me. Mom, shalom, shalom. When Malachi brought that out, Hebrews lost their mind. What he bring out? Ema, set apart living said, when Malachi brought that out, Hebrews lost their mind. I must have missed it. I'll wait for your comment before I start reading. BC, I remember I first read about sacrifices. I said, I ain't doing that. About the sacrifices. Okay. And look, remember, I hadn't even started watching Malachi, his stuff until recently. Now, I seen them coming up. I used to watch them a lot when him and Yaki was together. But as I started looking into some other things, I just kind of went away from a lot of people that I was watching. I was like, wait a minute, because a lot of stuff was coming out, and it was like shaking the core of my foundation. I'm like, I'm gonna stop and listen to everybody. I was like, let me hold on. I don't need to be hearing nobody else's voice, but Father, yours and yours alone. So I stopped listening to a lot of people for a long time. And I just started looking into other things. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it was like punches to the gut when I realized, oh my gosh, when I realized we had been worshiping something that we were not supposed to have been worshiping. Like when I say I was sick, y'all, I was sick. Right. When I came to the realization of that with Jesus, Yahusha, whatever you want to name him, which indeed is now we know is a true person because we went through that whole, like this whole character was created. The character, there is a fictional character of the real person that was created, and they mingle some of the created stuff with the true person who really was. And we learn about the true Jashu, or you want to call Yashu, whatever, you arguing about the J and the Y, whatever, the real one. We get the real story about him in here, which lines up with what we find in the Essenes gospel, right? The Essenes gospel of peace, right? It just when you get more information, you're able to rightly divide truth from error. Yeah, about the sacrifices. Sheba said about eating meat. I think Ahuba talking about. Oh, okay. Yeah, she did. Yeah, she said the sacrifices. Yo, it is. If listen, I'm telling you, if you go through the Bible, I tested it. If you go through the Bible and you remove everything sacrifice, you can pretty much almost have to do away with the priesthood altogether, which most Hebrews gonna think is blasphemy, right? But that priesthood, you get a whole nother different understanding of what this priesthood was truly doing to Israel. When especially, and it really started kicking in when I went plant-based, because now with some things, it's like, okay, especially on Passover, when you got to eat a little bit of lamb. And I told you, I gave y'all this story. I had to call my uncle. I said, so what are y'all doing about the lamb? Because he had already stopped eating meat. He had already stopped eating meat. And even on Passover, he said he was not. And at first, I was like, well, ooh, isn't that kind of like breaking some kind of law towards the creator? And he was saying he's not going to violate his body for something that could possibly not be from the creator. He said, because if you look at it naturally, it don't matter what way you put it, meat destroys the body. I said, so you're not going to eat the lamb? He said, no, I'm not going to put that in my body anymore. I was like, we can do that and not get in trouble. He was like, yeah, he said, I mean, I ain't telling you what to do, but he said, I'm not eating it anymore. And at that time when I had this conversation with him, Nene Shalom says, I was like really struggling with that, because at that time we was like religiously following all the feast days, Passover and everything. And I told you, it just kind of came to a head where I started getting frustrated. I'm like, Father, this seemed like we kind of going back into the bondage of Christianity, trying to keep these things like to the T like this, you know. And as I was doing that, when I was teaching the children, because it was them. And sometimes you may think you have rebellious children, but children can teach you a lot if you pay attention to them, right? So trying to teach them how to do this and why we got to do this, And so then I was like, okay, don't just do it because it's Passover. Do this, get all the stuff with yeast and get it out the house. So as I began to explain to them, I said, this kind of represents us searching ourselves inwardly for hidden sin in our life. And we have to be ever so careful, because sometimes we can think we got all of it out. So, oops, one day, oh man, we thought that was gone. So me explaining this like this, and then I started to get frustrated as Passovers continued to go on and different things. I was like, Father, hold up. I was like, wait a minute. He said, Pam, calm down. I was like, calm down. I'm just saying, it was a whole learning experience, and I realized what I was trying to do. And I get, right, because this is how idols started. Show them with idols how this is to be done. But somewhere we get off, and now we're worshiping the idols instead of pulling from the story, the lesson that they was trying to teach with the idols. It just gets you away from the creator, right? Somewhere down the line, we began to misinterpret what the idols were really for. They were there to teach you a higher principle um, of what you should be doing and how you should be growing. These don't matter at all. These were just teaching props to help you understand. But like I said, somewhere down the line, we took this as being real, and this is the real thing, and we forget the lesson. We miss the lesson completely, and that's what the Father had to recenter me about some of these things. I have a lot clearer understanding of it now. But yeah, if you go through and you remove everything regarding sacrifices that the priesthood did, you get a smooth flowing story. You really would. Even Leviticus chapter 23, you can remove everything out of there that requires you to slaughter an animal, eat meat, even to atone for the sins on atonement day, which is an abomination when you think about creator and his laws of life. Don't kill anything, man or beast, right? Because if you're following the creator's true laws of life, you're going to have to question, right? You're going to have to question, well, why are we killing sweet smelling savor? How does this help me make this make sense? Because this don't make sense to me. If we're not to slaughter, then why do you need to smell sweet smelling savor from slaughtered beasts? And why do we need beasts, their blood and stuff, to atone for our sins? Because over here it says this is an abomination, right? And then you get into the New Testament, they take that and translate it. The animal sacrifices was a big setup for the human sacrifice in the person of JC that gets people off, and people are still stuck there, and they don't realize that in itself, the blood sacrifice, Jesus saved me by your blood, all of that is an abomination. If you understand who the Father truly is, blood does not cleanse. And I know that sounds like blasphemy. Oh my God, blasphemy. Why did I come to this channel? Look at it. Common sense would tell you. And the Creator teaches us everything by what He put in nature. This blood cleanse, just think about it. Think about it today. I'm about to go take this blood bath. What you just say? Is you a vampire? Like, it doesn't make sense. What cleanses? Water. Blood defiles, right? Blood defiles. So if you just think about some of those things, it some things just don't make sense logically. And people they take you on a spiritual trip when it comes to Christianity. I'm sure other religions do it too, but I came out of Christianity. So I know they play that. And y'all bless that, and I say y'all, and the Creator bless their hearts because they're ignorant and they don't know. They're just like robots. They're automatons following this same thing and preaching with fire and brimstone from the depths of their shanana because they truly believe it's the truth. But no, buddy, you're a robot in the pulpit. And you get mad when somebody asks you a question about this or they challenge what you're saying because that's all you believe here. You don't go outside of this. I know some people that they don't go outside of the Bible whatsoever to try to verify anything. They take it, but you can tell the difference between them. And those are like spiritually dwarfed people. Their levels of spirituality and understanding, to the other ignorant, they seem like, oh my gosh, it's the wisest man in the world. God bless our pastor. Don't you put your mouth on a man or woman of God, right? I'm like, which God? Is it Lil Monk? I think it's Lil Monk. Could it be but you can't really do that to them because they don't get it. They don't understand. They're trapped, right? They're trapped. This is garbage being peddled from the pulpit to the pews, and they just regurgitating the garbage amongst one another. It's like raccoons eating out of a trash can. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry if that offends you, but that's what it is if you look at it, right? Okay, let's go back here. Page 45, verse 13. Where we at? 42 minutes. I'm gonna read all the way to the end of chapter. I'm gonna read to the end of chapter 4. Maybe chapter 5. If y'all got to get out here and go to work, just go ahead and get out of here. Remember, this is recorded. Because chapter 5 is only a few verses. Chapter 5 is 5 verses. Chapter 4 is 10 verses. This is 34 verses. So I'm going to read to the end of chapter 5, and then we'll hop over to the field guide to the spirit world. All right. Nazarene is saying shalom, shalom. Oahspe College University, shalom. That's right, Oahspe. He said the smell is atmosphere and food for the gods. Right. Not the Creator. Creator don't need that. That's for us. In our, well, not me. I ain't gonna be asking nobody to sacrifice nothing. I don't need to smell that. I can live, like I'm already preparing myself to live off plant-based foods and stuff. So the atmosphere and portion of the trees and the berries and fruits and herbs and stuff, that'll be my portion. Right. All right. Verse 13, page 45. God said, in Jehovah's name, all hail. Ashon, chief of Anachron, all hail. And God went forward to the foot of the throne and received Ashon, whereupon the lords came forward, saluting also. The Esenars ceased singing, and Ashon proceeded to the throne and sat thereon. And God took off his crown and gave it to Ashon, and also gave him the triangle, which was called the heirloom of the heavenly kingdoms of the earth, bestowed by command of Jehovah, Creator, Spirit, and flesh. It's the triangle. Love, power, and wisdom. The all light was abundant around about Ashon, and the voice of Jehovah spake out of the midst thereof, saying, inasmuch as these things are done in my name prayerfully and in faith, so do I dwell with you all. My son shall wear thy crown, O God. Behold, I am come in might and swiftness, for it is the springtime of the earth. My son Cephas is afoot on the earth. He has stirred up the earthborn. But I will establish anew my light in these heavens. Have I not said, I brought the seed of everlasting life to the earth? I gave God and his lords to teach mortals and spirits of my glories in the upper heavens. And I commanded that they that come out, I'm sorry, and I commanded that they that came up out of the earth should be my God and my lords in these realms. Ye were installed by my hand and have done a good work. Think not that I curse because Horeb and Moab are fallen. Knew I not beforehand that these things would be? Behold, I have provided all my works so that man should be forever making new things. Had Horeb stood, there had been no heaven to rebuild on earth in this day. How then could my newborn gods learn? Think not that I come to teach with mine own labor. I provide my people that they shall teach one another. What is so conceited as man, and yet I bring him into life, the dumbest of animals. Man prideth himself in his power and wisdom. I send the drought, and after drought is reference number 2, and 2 at the bottom says drought. Drouth. Man prideth himself in his power and wisdom. I send the drought, the rains, and the winds, the weakest of my members, and they show man he is nothing. Wow, listen. The Father said, rains and winds are the weakest of his members, and my is in capital letters. Well, the capital M, lowercase y. Man prideth himself in his power and wisdom. I send the drought, the rains, and the winds, the weakest of my members, and they show man he is nothing. So also do my gods and lords of the lower heaven become conceited of their power and wisdom, but a turn of a word and their heavens fall. Thousands of millions of souls turn from order and high estate into confusion and anarchy. Thus do I confound men and angels, and in their seeming misery lay the foundation for everlasting good. The voice ceased. That whole verse is amazing. I never really paid attention to it like I just did. I'm going to read it again. Listen. He said, just kind of summed up, in your highest wisdom, you still are wanting a lot. He said, I confound man and angels. Listen to this. He said, the weakest parts of me, drought, rain, and winds, they cause you to be nothing. Like they will take you, the weakest parts of me take you out. Rains, enough rains will cause you to not be living anymore, at least in your flesh. Kevin, shalom, shalom. Interesting that most smoked foods have a label of savory. That is interesting. I know. Ooh, Kevin, that's good. Ooh, that's good. A sweet smelling savor. Roast the meat on the fire. That's good. Yes, the smell was pleasant to them. I guess they also like the smell of money, tithing. Ooh, I guess so. I wish I had that little button. Uh Malachi started it. Selah got the little tune going. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. That would have been great to press right there. Listen. Okay, verse 18, page 45. What is so conceited as man, and yet I bring him into life, the dumbest of animals. Man prideth himself in his power and wisdom. I send the drought, the rains, and the winds, the weakest of my members, and they show man he is nothing. So also do my gods and lords of the lower heaven become conceited of their power and wisdom, but a turn of a word and their heavens fall. Thousands of millions of souls turn from order and high estate into confusion and anarchy. Thus do I confound men and angels, and in their seeming misery lay the foundation for everlasting good. The voice ceased, right? And everything that, but I think about the scripture in Genesis where it says, everything that was meant for your bad is turned around for your good. Thus do I confound men and angels, and in their seeming misery lay the foundation for an everlasting good. The voice ceased. Verse 19, page 45. Shong said, in the name of Jehovah, I announce my presence over earth and the lower heaven. The marshal said, all hail, Ashong, God of heaven and earth. Proclaim him in Jehovah's name. Hardly had these words gone forth when the entire host enjoined in proclaiming, all hail, O God, son of Jehovah. Ashong, now God, said, thy crown shall be my crown, for under this shall Jehovah's power triumph. Otherwise, people would say, behold, there is no virtue in Jehovah's crowns. So he placed it on his head and rose up and saluted the retired God and lords, saying to them, I have a place for ye, and it is called Yeshua. Remember, we learned about Yeshua yesterday. It is a place of salvation that the Ashars retire to and the gods when they come off of duty, so to speak, right? A little bit of R&R, rest and relaxation, right? Because after dealing with some of y'all regents, the Ashars like, I need Yeshua. I need salvation. Take me to the place that is higher than I. Look, hold on. Verse 23. I have a place for ye, and it is called Yeshua. Retire thither with my proper officers, and partake of rest and the freedom of the place until I come also. But the retired God and lords said, we pray thee, put us to labor. Whereupon God, Ashong, said, Jehovah's sons must not be humiliated. How then can ye labor under me? Were ye not Jehovah's God and lords? He said, listen, y'all just came off the throne. Like, y'all can't come under me. Y'all was just like, I'm God now. It's new cycle. Y'all go ahead and go up because I'm going to need to be asking y'all some questions. Look, they're worshiping a lodge, Kevin. Look, this gets deep. It's like, it's a whole lot of twist and plot turns in the history of Israel and what was happening. It's all through the Bible. It's a whole plot twist. Matter of fact, it's the biggest plot twist when you get to the end of it and you start searching, asking questions, and find out the one you thought was God is really a false God. You talking about plot twist, major turn of events, bruh. Most people can't get over that, and they ready to fight you. Nope, I'm stepping back into ignorance. We worshiping whatever they call them, whatever Israel is calling. We ain't talking about the prophets, but we talking about we talking about hard-headed Israel, the ones that's always doing the worshiping, and you should have just left us in Egypt. Them hard-headed regents right there, them ninjas, them. Look, you talking about a major plot twist. Look, okay. Verse 23, I'll reread again. I have a place for ye, and it is called Yeshua. Retire thither with my proper officers and partake of the rest and the freedom of the place until I come also. But the retired God and lords said, we pray thee, put us to labor. Whereupon God, Ashong, said, Jehovah's sons must not be humiliated. How then can ye labor under me? Were ye not Jehovah's God and lords? They perceived, and after due salutations, were provided with an escort of 500,000 men and women, and they departed on their way to Yeshua. God, Ashong, said, let Magai, M apostrophe Ghi, Magai, let Magai come before me, and Bingfo and Nest, they shall be my lords of dawn in Jehovah's name. The three came and stood before the throne. God said, I announce the presence of Jehovah's lords of the earth. The marshals said, all hail, O Magi, and Bingfo and Nest, Jehovah's lords of the earth. These were also proclaimed by the voice of the assembled host. God said, in Jehovah's name, go your ways, O lords of the earth. Whereupon the lords crowned themselves and once departed, whereupon the lords crowned themselves and at once departed, saluting reverently. God said, bring the atmosphere and marshals before me. They were brought and stationed in front of the throne. God said, glory be to thee, O Jehovah. I have looked upon thy sons and daughters who have withstood a great darkness, but retained faith in thee. In thy name and by virtue of thy power do I deliver them. Let him who is chief answer me. How many angels are prepared for the second resurrection? Sawney, chief marshal, said, 200 million. God said, retire thou and thy companions and gather together Jehovah's harvest of souls, and I will send them to Yeshua. The atmospherians were then duly arranged as commanded, and God called 100 swift messengers and 1,000 Ethereal marshals, and they provided abatos, and the host, prepared for the second resurrection, departed for Yeshua as commanded. God said, I have now remaining my Ethereal. God said, I have now remaining my Ethereal hosts and the atmospherians in darkness. Of the latter, let them remain as they are for 3 days, for I will travel around the world, and my Ethereal hosts with me, observing mortals and spirits in their places and habits, that I may the better judge them and provide accordingly. So God and his Ethereal angels provided an abatos, and they embarked and started on their journey, traveling imperceptibly to mortals. This is good. Look, you know what? Listen, this reminded me again. Remember, I told you, I'm thinking there was I don't know. No, because it hasn't been quite 200 years yet. What do y'all say? 2048 from what? 1848 to 2048 is 200 years, right? Okay. So remember I told you I thought about this dream where what's crazy? Remember I explained this to you before? I had even learned about like the triangle or whatever, right? How it explains it here. I was laying in my bed and I was in a half woke, half sleep state, and I saw 3 figures, 3 people. Well, they look like men, right? Okay, so they were walking. Okay, move your mouth because I gotta use my hands. But ain't you supposed to be? No, today is virtual, right? Okay, move. Move, boy. Look, so it was 3. I was laying in my bed, and it was like my bed was suspended in midair, and there were 3 people, and they were walking in the form of a triangle. One in the front, one to the left, and one to the right, and one in the front had a clipboard, like he was giving shift turnover or whatever, something like that. And they were walking, and they looked at me, and they said, "Is this one of the ones who would be?" And that's when I woke up. One of the ones who would be what? And they just kind of kept going. And as they were looking, this reminded me of that. And this is also, listen to what it said. Boy, you have listening to stuff coming downstairs, don't even know what we're talking about. This is the Kool-Aid, don't even know the flavor. Hey, shush. Aliens around up. Boy, move out the kitchen, please and thank you. Look, right here, Ashong just took over, right? This whole thought. It's just like when somebody come in and take over a business, so you got a new CEO coming in. They, instead of doing what Elon Musk just did, going in there, he purchased Twitter and started firing everybody. Then they called a mandatory meeting of everybody that's level who gonna run Twitter and fired everybody. Instead of doing that, he should have just come in nice and quiet and observe operations to see what was really happening in Twitter, right? Because they lost some of their best tech people when he came in, allowing his ego. Like in this, we could look at, hold on, Jeremiah. Wait. I do know the backstory. I know the backstory behind it. Chill. That's the. I'm not even getting into the backstory. I'm just using this as the surface portion as an example. We ain't getting into Elon Musk and all the why he fired everybody, but just from surface, I know there's a backstory, but it's readily easy because everybody probably knows about it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, he's about to give us a whole dissertation. Listen, look. I know Jeremiah the love child, right? Look, like for real though, for real. Like if we were to look at like the surrounding circumstances at the time he was born with me and my husband and how lovey-dovey at that time we were, Jeremiah is like the love child, right? That's good. I've never thought about it that way. But listen, so when there's new gods coming on, remember they go and they, at least through here we see that they go and they survey the earth and what's going on so they can better rule, find out where everybody is, what are the issues we've been having, right? It show you proper it helps you with your organization and how to better run it when you take the reins of leadership, right? Elon Musk didn't do that, right? He came in firing everybody. And he's not the only one that does it. There's a lot of people that do this. Instead of coming in, okay, introduce yourself or whatever, everybody just continue working. There will be some changes, but we need to figure out what's really going on. And then, after your observance, after your findings, find out the inconsistencies, what's happening, like what happened. A good contrasting uh um a good contrasting company to that, I would say, would be Starbucks. When Roz Brewer took over Starbucks for a few years as CEO, and she came in and she observed, and that's one of the good qualities about Roz Brewer. Whatever, she used to be the CEO of Walmart, then Sam's Club, then Starbucks. She got that thing under control. Remember, I mentioned her the other day where those two gentlemen, two black guys, they were discriminated against by a couple of the, well, not a couple, one of the white employees or whatever. It was national news. It was everywhere, right? And this was like during the height of all the Black Lives Matter movement and all that. So everybody's all in the uproar. But when she had just come in, she had just taken over the position as CEO in Starbucks, and she already knew just by observing there were some things that were like falling through the cracks. Some of the quality was being lost, and this kind of spearheaded all of it. And so she got a jump on it. Within 24 hours, there was a statement from her with that, not only apologizing to those young men, but creating a whole what you call it, racial diversity training, making sure everybody, like, she held them to the fire. Everybody will be trained on this. Everybody, like, she was in there with them, not sitting back, I think this need to be done. No, she left off her throne and she went down there mingling with the people. She went to stores inside and out, working in there with them, trying to find out what was the disconnection between what's going on in the different franchises and the stores and stuff. And that's signs of a true leader. Elon Musk, I don't like the way it's been running. You didn't ban a couple people that I like to see from Twitter. We're going to stop all this. Everybody that's doing the banning, we find a whole department. Open up everybody Twitter back up. Ego. And now he done fired about half of Twitter, the Twitter workers, and ain't nobody to run Twitter. And they're not only did he fire them, after he came in there firing over 200, and that probably got that number off a little bit. Hundreds of people put in their resignations, right? So he didn't account for that. Then when he fired half the really skilled workforce behind Twitter, that some of the older, the veteran type people that were there, even some of the younger ones, the really bright, the genius ones that are there in those operations, they put in their resignation. They're like, well, you coming in here like a saber-toothed tiger. What type of leadership are we about to have in Twitter, right? So it's just, it's a mess at Twitter right now. And Elon Musk, now he's forced to sit back. Excuse me, do y'all have time to, okay, what would be the best time for everybody to get together? Because I would like to talk to everybody about moving on, like trying to get a hold of Twitter right now. And but that's like what false gods do, right? Hold on, listen. Verse 32, page 46. The atmospheres were then duly arranged as commanded, and God called 100 swift messengers and 1,000 Ethereal marshals, and they provided abatos, and the host, prepared for the second resurrection, departed for Yeshua as commanded. God said, I have now remaining my Ethereal hosts and the atmospheres in darkness of the latter. Let them remain as they are for 3 days, for I will travel around the world, and my Ethereal hosts with me, observing mortals and spirits in their places and habits, that I may the better judge them and provide accordingly. And that's how we start talking about Elon Musk. Right, you got to go in there first and just observe what's happening before you can bring any kind of solutions or what you think might be solutions, because what you think might be solutions might actually add to the problem, because you don't realize there's a deeper problem, and it's not right here. Although this is like on Front Street, that's not where the problem is at. That is just that's symptoms of a deeper problem. But this problem starts all the way over there. That's where you got to go. Over there. That's the problem, right? Look, of the latter, let them remain as they are for 3 days, for I will travel around about the world, and my Ethereal host with me, observing mortals and spirits in their places and habits, that I may the better judge them and provide accordingly. So God and his Ethereal angels provided the abados, and they embarked and started on their journey, traveling imperceptibly to mortals. Okay, we had an hour. I'll go ahead and read these next 15 verses. It's 10 and 4 and 5 and chapter 5. Most of them would threaten to leave anyway. They probably was. They when they heard Musk was coming, they was like, "What? No, the guy that's getting everybody, he's selling, he's selling the guy that's selling moon tickets to everybody, and some people actually bought these tickets to the moon. No, I'm sorry, not the moon, to Mars. The guys who selling Mars tickets, billions of dollars for Mars tickets. You taking everybody? Apparently, you what you trying to tell us is that you don't like people, right? And you made these Mars these Mars flight tickets $20 billion. Maybe a good handful of people in the world can afford some tickets on this rocket to Mars. What you telling us about it, some pricing everybody out, is that you don't really like people. No, y'all seen that movie? Don't Look Up. It's got to be one of the dumbest movies. Not dumb. It was funny, but it was dumb funny. And when I thought about him, they y'all gotta watch it. Hold on, Don't Look Up. Dude said, she asked Meryl, the lady asked, he said, how do I die? He was like, this dude was like Elon Musk. Maybe, yeah, I said he was kind of like an Elon. Nah, maybe not Elon Musk, but a really prideful, full of ego and everything. And his little technology and stuff was supposed to be like super, super amazing, where nobody was even on his level. So much so that when people came and talked to him, he never even looked his eyes up. Yeah, no, I can't come. Yep, I got. Yeah, this is. Yeah, so the whole movie, his eyes pretty much down in his technology and stuff, and he also is selling Mars tickets to get off the Earth, because the Earth gonna be no more pretty soon. And the whole gist of the movie is that the world is being they're pretty much put in a trance, and they're taught not to look up at what's really going on around them. It's like a deeper spiritual side of that. If you watch it, it's dumb. If you can get through it, you can see like a message kind of emerging from it, where it's really just the gist of the movie is that the whole world is sleeping and nobody's looking up, right? Nobody's looking up to see what's really happening, and we're on a crash course. Look at the generations and how they're, that was the at least what I pulled from it. But I just thought about when she had asked how she was going to die. I was going to joke and say that Elon Musk was going to die by Bronx to Rock. But I didn't want to say that. I don't want to wish death on nobody. But it was funny because she said a Bronx Rock, because this was his super amazing technology that is able to spit out futures and what's going to happen here, here, and here. And so she asked, she said, well, how am I going to die? Do you know? Yeah, we know. She said, I want to know. No, I don't want. Yeah. How am I going to die? And I'm just kind of summing it up a little bit. He said, well, you die by Bronterock, but we don't really know what that means yet. And so when you get to the end of the movie, if you remember that conversation, you will get it when it happens. And then he said, oh, everybody, this is a Bronterock. It's funny. Y'all may not watch it, but it was funny. It was dumb, but it was good. But it may be too dumb for some people. But watch it if you get a chance. Not mandatory. Oh, what we at? Hour 9 minutes. Look, he moves his eyes like a cyborg. You don't dislike him, and he's a really smart guy. He really is. But yeah. we're gonna spend too much time talking about Elon. Listen, chapter 4, page 46, or chapter IV. The Council of Yeshua, of which there were 1 million members, was formed in groups, and these again represented in groups. And the hold on. The Council of Yeshua, of which there were 1 million members, was formed in groups, and these again represented in groups, and these in still other groups. Consequently, a group of 1,000 had one speaker who became the voice of that thousand. Of the speakers, 100 had one voice in council, and of these, 10, one had voice before God, and he was the voice of the whole, and Jehovah was his voice. Thus was the whole council represented in all its parts, and this was the manner of proceeding, to wit, God commanded God commanded the subject. The council deliberated in thousands, and each speaker became aware of the voice of his group. Then these speakers assembled in hundreds and deliberated, and they again centered into one voice, and each 10 of these had one voice before God. Thus it came to pass that the decrees of God were both the wisdom of men and Jehovah. Hence the saying, when God said this or God commanded that, it was the word of Jehovah expressed by men and angels. After God had After God and his hosts visited the earth and the lower heaven, they returned to Yeshua and set in council on the affairs of mortals and atmospherians. God said, behold, the heavens and earth have become like gardens grown foul and rank, producing nothing. I have come with a pruning knife and a consuming fire. God said, I withdraw from the Druge and the Druk the beneficence of Jehovah's chosen. I leave them destitute. Who can approach the beggar with wisdom, or the king with inspiration to be good? A drowning man will try to swim, but the reveler in lust must perish before his soul can learn Jehovah. Wow, listen. That's interesting. That's pretty much saying, he said, some people, they just not going to get it right on this side while they still got their flesh. A drowning man will try to swim, but the reveler in lust must perish before his soul can learn Jehovah. Better it is to labor with a child from infancy and thence to maturity to teach it aright than to strive with a score of conceited adults and fail to redeem one. Ooh, I don't know how I didn't highlight that the first time. I remember reading this too. That whole verse. I'm gonna read that again. I wasn't even done with verse 6. Better it is to labor with a child from infancy and thence to maturity to teach it aright than to strive with a score of conceited adults and fail to redeem one. Who is the mocker of charity more than they that give to such as can help themselves but will not? Wisdom and uprightness of heart are but bread. Preach not to unwelcome ears. Are sermons of wisdom to be forced into men's souls? Bless Jehovah. He made hunger, and so men love bread. Without hunger, they would not eat. A wise God driveth home to man's understanding his helplessness in spirit when Jehovah is denied. I like that too. Verse 8. Pursue the earth, O my beloved, bring hence all light. Pursue the lower heaven of the earth also, bring hence all light. I will leave the earth and heaven in darkness one whole year. They shall cry out their conceit in the wind. I'm sorry. They shall cry out their conceit in the dumb wind shall fail. I'm read again. I'm reading the whole verse. Pursue the earth, O my beloved, bring hence all light. Pursue the lower earth, pursue the lower heaven of the earth also, bring hence all light. I will leave the earth and heaven in darkness one whole year. They shall cry out their conceit, and the dumb wind shall fail. Have not the spirits of heaven despoiled Horeb and Moab? Do not evil spirits and evil men say, behold, there is enough, let us divide. But they produce not. They are devourers, living on others' substance. The Great Spirit made man to exert. By exertion groweth he in wisdom and strength. They seek ease and comfort. Helpless and more helpless they fall. They are on the road to everlasting destruction. Happy is the God who can arouse them. Ooh, that's good. Happy is the God who can arouse them, and not just the gods. Those of us here on earth who seem to go through this same thing. A good example would be with older children. Happy are the parents who can arouse the older children to get out there and get their own. Chapter 5. This is 5 verses, and then we're going to hop over here to the field guide to the spirit world. God said, "Blessed is the surgeon's knife. Its burn is the capital of health regained. But yet a fool will cry out, Hold, hold, enough, thou inflictor of pain." Let me read that again. God said, "Blessed is the surgeon's knife. Its burn is the capital of health regained." That's good. That's good. God said, "Blessed is the surgeon's knife. Its burn is the capital of health regained. But yet a fool will cry out, Hold, hold, enough, thou inflictor of pain." This reminds me of the scripture in the New Testament where it talks about the double-edged sword, right? A double-edged sword. And a surgeon literally does hold a double-edged sword, right? The first comes and it cuts, right? And then it comes back. The other side is healing, right? Because you can take that same sword or needle point sharpness or whatever and come back and sew you back up. Like the first, we got to cut it. We got to get all the infection out. We got to fix what's going on the inside, right? And then we'll come back with another sharp point. May not be the sword. You get it. When they sew you up, they use a needle, not another cutting knife, right? But y'all get what I'm trying to say, right? They come back. That's why they gotta put you on anesthesia or put some numbing topical, depending on what type of surgery it is, right? Because if they didn't, you would be the one, be that fool crying out, talking about hold, hold, enough, thou inflictor of pain, bruh. I'm trying to heal you. I know it hurt, but if I can't leave you like this, look. That's good. God said, "Blessed is the surgeon's knife. Its burn is the capital of health regained. But yet a fool will cry out, Hold, hold, enough, thou inflictor of pain. Who hath an eye like Jehovah? His whipping posts are on all sides, but there is a clear road between them, yet man followeth it not. Withdraw all good men and good angels, and there is no person left. They would not be half made up." Let me read it again. "Withdraw all good men and good angels, and there is no person left. They would not be half made up. A man without an arm or leg is but part of a man. A man without perception of the all person is a deformity in the soul. He seeketh a home for his own ease and glory, but the Son of Jehovah seeketh to find the severest labor that will profit his brethren." That's good. I'm gonna read it again. "Withdraw all good men and good angels, and there is no person left. They would not be half made up. A man without an arm or a leg is but part of a man. A man without perception of the all person or creator, the all light, the ever present, a man without perception of the all person is a deformity in soul. He seeketh a home for his own ease and glory, but the Son of Jehovah seeketh to find the severest labor that will profit his brethren. Yeshua shall be my homestead. Hither will I bring the fruit of heaven below. Hither build my training schools. 7 years shall be my service, and they shall learn the ways of Ethera. Build me a house of brotherhood and fill it with willing pupils sworn to labor, and I will make them gods and lords with power and wisdom. Behold, a man maketh a factory and turneth out fabric for sale. I make a college and I turn out sons and daughters of Jehovah to give away." Ooh, I like that. That's good. Verse 5, and this is the last verse in this chapter, and then we're hopping over here to the field guide book. Page 46, chapter 5, verse 5. "Behold, a man maketh a factory and turneth out fabric for sale. I make a college and I turn out sons and daughters of Jehovah to give away. Bring me such material as will stand in warp and filling. Jehovah's fabric shall endure forever. Search me out of the seed of Ehim and house them with care, for they shall redeem the earthborn after I ascend to the Father's kingdom. That was amazing. All right, beautiful people. So this is what we're pausing at today. Where we at? We're already at hour 19 minutes. Page 46. We'll start on page 47. Here. All right, y'all. So we'll pause right here. This was really good today. I know we literally used the whole hour and then some to read this, but this was good. I wanted to keep that bit together. That's good, Kevin. Yeah. All right, y'all. Page 113 is where we pause after that this last list of killers and some of their thoughts of what some of the when it was talking about their walk, their overshadowed gate. They call it the overshadowed gate, which is kind of a clue to something could be off. We need to pay attention to this. And it was a whole list. Matter of fact, let me reread this list. Let us take a moment. We're at page 113 in chapter 4, soul murder. Let us take a moment to searchlight this unique clue, the overshadowed gate. No, let me go back. Go back to page 112 so I can keep all that together. The second paragraph from the bottom where it says, we have reason to believe. We have reason to believe that any form of spirit control may affect the organism, limbs in particular. A poltergeist focal agent, age 16, is found to have a, quote, funny walk, end quote. And back in the day, when home seances were popular, quote, sitters, end quote, for physical phenomena and PK, psychokinesis, sometimes reacted with spasmodic jerks of the limbs. The jerking, it was believed, was caused by a reaction in their bodies. The sitters now harnessed as hosts for the materialization. And the same sort of spasms are noticeable among psychopaths. Coincidence? I don't think so. For example, something was wrong with the shoemaker's walk, his unsteady, quote, shuffling, end quote. Quote, he walked with strange, jerky movements, end quote. Schreiber, 1984, page 323 and 371. Let us take a moment to searchlight this unique clue, the overshadowed gate. Richard Chase, quote, the vampire of Sacramento, end quote, moved, quote, unsteadily from place to place, shuffling and dragging one foot, end quote. Markman and Bosco, 1989, page 188 and 170. Cho, the Virginia Tech shooter, 2007, had undiagnosable trouble with his legs. One girlfriend of Fred Cole, compulsive rapist, noticed, quote, the slight ungainliness in his rolling walk, end quote. Olson, 1983, page 71. California's notorious Zodiac lumbered along, quote, like a bear, end quote. John List, familicide, had a, quote, bouncy, awkward gait, end quote. Sharkey, 1990, page 288. Jeff McDonald, also familicide, quote, shuffled like an old man, end quote. McGinnis, 1983, page 376. Melvin Reese, Maryland aerial serial killer, 9 victims, had a, quote, strange gait, end quote. He waddled like a duck. Timothy McVeigh had an, quote, awkward strut, end quote. Arthur Shawcross, at age 10, had come down with, quote, a mysterious malady crippling his legs, end quote. Olson, 1993, page 445. Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, had, quote, a stiff walk, end quote. Byrne, 1985, page 48. Peter Woodcock, Toronto serial killer, had, quote, a strange walk, end quote. Our country is the world capital of serial killers, taking second place for rapes. When the world's emerging nations were polled to identify the biggest problems facing their country, crime soared the highest at 83%. Dr. Arthur Girdham, a British psychiatrist with decades of experience treating the neurotic, the psychotic, the obsessed, and possessed, spoke openly of the, quote, enormous increase in acts of senseless violence as we wade through the wreckage of civilization, end quote. Much of it, as he came to believe, is due to, quote, the influence of malignant discarnates. Generally speaking, the seemingly pointless crimes are due to possession, end quote. Girdham, 1982, page 209. Let's face it, quote, tough on crime, end quote, posturing is more the vote gabbing strategy. I'm sorry, is more the vote grabbing strategy than any kind of answer or solution. Neither are the system's, quote, hired guns, end quote, which are court psychiatrists, making any progress towards a solution. Working hand in hand with the powers that be, the so called experts are only too happy to play the game, feeding us disingenuous adjectives like delusional or incomprehensible or subhuman instead of coming to grips with the decidedly paranormal aspects of mental illness and crime. It costs, after all, a great deal more to care for mentally ill prisoners than, quote, healthy, sane, end quote, ones. The calling, but calling rabid crime and, quote, ultimately unexplainable evil, end quote, Douglas and O'Shaker, 2000, page 464, is equivocation to the first order. It is only unexplainable when we refuse to explore factor X. And that's what they don't want to do. They think it's going to get out of control. We can keep our thumb on it right here. Just put them all over there in the insane asylum, give them drugs. Soul murders start at home, and that's strong medicine for any of us. Whew, that might be our title. Soul murders start at home, and that's strong medicine for any of us. But leave psyche out of the picture, and we'll keep spinning our wheels, spinning yarns about the human mind that suit the status quo and enabling nothing but a self serving agenda. Quote, the denial of the existence of spirit beings could have serious consequences, end quote. Dave Hunt and T.A. Mc, Mc, McMahon, The New Spirituality. And this is like the last paragraph here in this chapter. Having once planned an entire, quote, PSI crime, end quote, I find myself swamped with material too copious for a single chapter. Lists and tables have helped me to compress some of these observations and main ideas, yet so much more remains to be discussed. We have only skimmed the surface of parenting and toxic households. Other issues and problems may be just as critical. A significant portion of serial killers, Ramirez, Sutcliffe, Berkowitz, Gacy, Bianchi, Hoffman, Jean, and others, underwent excessive exposure to the dead as young men in cemeteries, mortuaries, and the like. This is taken up in Appendix B. In addition, Appendix C covers the all important role of early trauma, especially head trauma in the unleashing of madness and mayhem. So let me see. And this is the end of this chapter, right? So I'm wondering, now I read through the appendix. Um I like that, Elijah. Um Tabitha said, we must all have the prodigal son experience in life to learn the creator. to learn the Creator's love. Yeah, I like that. Elijah said we are meant to be the messiahs of this age. We truly are, right? We truly are. Let me see something. Let me go to Appendix B. I want to see if I want to read this now, just to kind of go. Hold on. Yeah, and they got appendix. How long is Appendix C? Maybe we'll read. Let me read Appendix. Okay, listen. She said, we have only skimmed the surface of parenting and toxic households. Other issues and problems may be just as critical. A significant portion of serial killers, Ramirez, Sutcliffe, Berkowitz, Gacy, Bianchi, Hoffman, Jean, and others, underwent excessive exposure to the dead as young men in cemeteries, mortuaries, and the like. This is taken up in Appendix B. In addition, Appendix C covers the all important role of early trauma, especially head trauma, and the unleashing of madness and mayhem. I was going to see if we had time to read Appendix B and C. We definitely can get in. We can get in. We can get in Appendix B. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 3 whole pages, right? 3 whole pages, but it goes pretty quick. I may just say, I'm gonna go ahead and read Appendix B. It's entitled, it's on page 3, I'm sorry, on page 262. And we'll save the trauma portion because it has a chart. It has see behavior after head injury. Oh, that's one chart is just split up because of how long it is. And we'll read this. Let's see if we can, maybe when we come back Thursday, I can start with Appendix C, the trauma, before we start chapter 5. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So go to and we're gonna, once we get to the end of the book, we'll see if we need to read it again. But since she mentioned it now, I want to kind of keep it together so you can see about the cemeteries and stuff and how they were exposed to it. Okay, so go to, let me write it up here. Let me put over here so I don't forget. Appendix C, read first. Okay, so shucks, we might only be able to read Appendix C when we come back Thursday and start chapter 5 on Friday. So that's probably what we're gonna end up doing. Okay, so go to the back, page 262, Appendix B, exposure to death. Fritz, shalom, shalom. Okay. Exposure to the dead is one more neglected factor, especially for the predisposed person. Contact with death and dying may be more risky than we realize. Dr. Edith Fiore, one of a handful of American psychiatrists who treat their deranged cases by dislodging the troublesome spirit, has incisively written about 3 places with the greatest concentration of spirits: hospitals, funeral homes, and cemeteries. When drinking follows the funeral service, any spirits, listen, I just thought about something. Let me finish reading this. Let me go back. Dr. Edith Fiore, one of a handful of American psychiatrists who treat their deranged cases by dislodging the troublesome spirit, has incisively written about the 3 places with the greatest concentration of spirits: hospitals, funeral homes, and cemeteries. When drinking follows the funeral service, any spirits who followed the guests home can easily possess them. Think about this, why fights be breaking out at funerals and stuff, people. Yo, that's crazy. Listen, hospitals, quote, children often come down with obsessional disorders after a period of hospitalization, end quote. Levenkron, 1991, page 127. As Fiore explains, quote, doctors, nurses, hospital personnel, paramedics, undertakers, and people who work in cemeteries are all targets for possession. If we could see clairvoyantly, we would probably be shocked at the number of spirits that populate hospitals latching on to people. Fior, 1987, page 113. In near-death condition in a hospital bed, Betty Eady, 1992, page 126 to 27, felt the presence of, quote, several hideous creatures of a clearly malevolent nature that were intent upon attacking her, end quote. Quote, hospitals, end quote, wrote psychic medium James Van Prague, 2008, page 143, are a very big draw for ghosts. Whenever I visit people in hospitals, ghosts are always milling around. Some are there to siphon off energy from people in weakened states. Some are ghosts who are newly dead and somewhat confused as to their whereabouts, end quote. Cemeteries. Cemeteries. Expert at the removal of troublesome entities, Reverend Eugene Morey speaks from experience about cemeteries. Quote, hundreds reside in such places. Hospitals and prisons are also prime targets for an exorcist. A spirit person's trajectory will be governed by his beliefs. A person who had no belief about after death finds he must shift for himself. Unfortunately, he may remain in the hospital where he died or in the cemetery where his body was interred. He has become earthbound, end quote. And if a patient, quote, has been given a general, what? Stay right there. What you trying to do?
No, it's just my head.
Okay, take a look in there. Get that Mucinex. No, that box right there, the orange one. Get that. Take two of them. I'm gonna juice you a concoction, and I'm gonna knock on your door and sit it, and you just grab it after I walk away. Go ahead in there. Lord hammer, I'm gonna be spraying Lysol and wiping everything down. I'm about to go get my mask, y'all. Look, whew, if y'all could see his face, that's my oldest son. Hold on, what was I at? Oh, Field Guide to the Spirit World, Kizzy. Hey, girl. Hey, we're here and we're in Appendix B, Exposure to Death on page 263. We just jumped back here to read this because it referenced this. Okay, let me go back up. Let me go back up to the top of the page. Reverend Eugene Morey speaks from experience about cemeteries. Quote, hundreds reside in such places. Hospitals and prisons are also prime targets for an exorcist. A spirit, a spirit person's trajectory will be governed by his beliefs. A person who had no belief about after death finds he must shift for himself. We see that. I forget which book. And she actually, when she gave this verse, she put it in here somewhere. I just forget where it is. But it's talking in Oahspe how a person is going to have to shift for themselves now. Right? When you lose the anchor of your flesh, when you get out there and your beliefs was all willy-nilly, you're gonna have to kind of see through some of these things yourself for a period of time. A person who had no belief about after death finds he must shift for himself. Unfortunately, he may remain in the hospital where he died or in the cemetery where his body was interred. He has become earthbound, end quote. And if a patient, quote, has been given a general anesthetic for a surgical operation, he may find upon resuming consciousness he has one or more of these entities on board, end quote. And thank the Father that I came back and it was just me and my body. When I had the ectopic pregnancy, they put me out. I went under anesthesia, right? I was already walking with the Father before then, so I was protected. My charge was protecting my body. While I'm out, they was standing guard around me. Listen, I'm gonna read that again. And if a patient, quote, has been given a general anesthetic for a surgical operation, he may find upon resuming consciousness that he has one or more of these entities on board, end quote. Mortuary, 1988, page 24 and 92. Interestingly, Richard Knoll, 1990, page 37, has found that nursing is, quote, a common occupation among female multiples, end quote. The ski mask rapist, it turned out, was a one-time hospital cardiovascular technician. Sensitives, especially those who are sensitive and do not know it, can be caught unawares. Graveyards can wreak havoc on the sensitive. The actress Patty Duke, who bravely shared her, quote, brilliant madness with the world, recalled that whenever she passed the local cemetery, she was instantly overtaken with a panic attack. Patty was a sensitive but did not know it. She was prone to dissociative states. Quote, something takes over, end quote. Dramatic mood swings, violent outbursts, suicidal thoughts, demons inside me, end quote, as well as undeveloped mediumship, hearing voices, OBEs, quote, left my body, end quote, obsessions, precognitions, phobias, and manias. Dick Sutphin, a sensitive, quote, became hysterical at the edge of an ancient graveyard in Arizona and literally had to be dragged, sobbing, back to his hotel room. For hours afterward, he was delirious, talking about being killed. End quote. Wiseman, 1977, page 45. The input from spirits concerned a massacre that took place 400 years ago when a Spanish priest had issued an order to destroy all the Indians who refused baptism. Quote, mental disturbances, excuse me. Hold on, I'm gonna take some of this stuff when I'm done. Okay. Quote, mental disturbances of all kinds may have their source in the intrusions of hostile or parasitic or chaotic entities. Mankind's superstitious dread of night in the graveyard is not as laughable as the cultivated would like to pretend. End quote. Augustine Cahill, Darkness, Dawn, and Destiny. So don't tarry long among the tombstones if you think you are a sensitive. In Brazil, the spirits of suicides called Exus, EXUX, I don't know. I don't know how that's pronounced. Called, I'm gonna just say Exus, EXUX, quote, spend much of their time in cemeteries, which are regarded as particularly dangerous places for mediums with undeveloped abilities, end quote. Crapazano and Garrison, 1977, page 337. We have seen many abused children become psychic. Richard Ramirez is one example. Californians will remember with a chill the reign of the Night Stalker who took 14 innocent lives in the 1980s, terrorizing the women of LA. There had actually been many signs of dissociation, ASC, or remember, ASC is altered altered states of consciousness, and malignant overshadowing in this tall, young Tex-Mex guy, hyperactive disorder, fantasies, early epilepsy, sleep disorder, staring spells, and blackouts. It didn't help that Richard had been forced to witness a wife murder. Richard developed something of a dual personality as well as suicidal tendencies. He also exhibited certain cardinal signs of possession, corporella, and hyperpraxia. Wow, and remember that was what? Back here. Uh, I think corporal. Hold on, we just read that. It gave the definition. One of them is cursing a lot. I think that's yeah. Corporala is streams of obscenities. Is on page 111, and logoria, rapid, effusive, non-stop speech. Okay. Richard developed something of a dual personality as well as suicidal tendencies. He also exhibited certain cardinal signs of possession, corporalia, and hyperpraxia. While still living at home, this excellent candidate for negative overshadowing would take to sleeping in the Cordova Cemetery, El Paso, to get away from his father's rages. He'd grab his sleeping bag and run. Quote, the boy slept in the cemetery frequently, end quote. Did Richard pick up exes or demons or wandering spirits of darkness at the Cordova Cemetery? Peter Sutcliffe, his opposite number in England, almost certainly became obsessed at the Bingley Cemetery. The Yorkshire Ripper, whose identity spurred his country's largest manhunt to that date, 1981, had taken a job as a grave digger at Bingley Cemetery in his teens and later worked at the town morgue. Ultimately, convicted of 13 counts of stranger murder, he had a close encounter at the graveyard. Peter heard a voice that led him to a particular grave. The voice now emanated from the headstone. It was just the beginning. Now I'm sitting here thinking, if people stayed away from these positions, who is going to bury the dead? So here are my thoughts, right? Here are my thoughts on this now about this. Now thinking about this and thinking about what we learned in Oahspe on how even after you pass from here, there are spirits who go to hospitals and things of the like what we see here. We have hospitals and stuff here, so when they're born into chaos or born into the spirit world or what we call death here, when they're born there, some of them have to be restored and repaired and restored to sanity, and they're taken to hospitals. But who's running the hospitals is those who are trained to deal with these things. So now I'm thinking, I ain't gonna say all of the people are wrong, but people who work in hospitals, I think we see such a turn of events on this earth where people get truly healed. If people who worked in the hospitals were trained spiritually, like all of you doctors, because you understand the spirits who can come and infiltrate bodies while surgery is being done, not only should you be trained in your physical craft in the medical field, but you should also be trained spiritually, especially if you're working in hospitals, because you have to be aware of these things, especially because people who come into the hospitals, most of them are unaware. Most of them lack spiritual understanding. Most of them have no clue what could possibly happen to them and some of the evils that are hanging around these places, and not just the hospitals, but the cemeteries. People who work in the morgue around dead bodies. You should be spiritually trained in these things so when you're there, first of all, you don't get taken over. Right? You can recognize the spirits and you can control this whole thing, not just the physical, but also the spiritual. Nope, get away from here. You will not. Like you have to be. Now I'm thinking about this in a totally different light. Like people in hospitals, morgues, people, even people working at the cemetery, just the grave, those who dig the graves and stuff. All of these people need to be spiritual people trained to, I guess, to certain levels. At least on this level here, where you understand all these spiritual things. This is just, man, I've never looked at this like this before. Listen, let me go back up. Page 264. Third paragraph down. Did Richard pick up exes or demons or wandering spirits of darkness at the Cordova Cemetery? Peter Sutcliffe, his opposite number in England, almost certainly became obsessed at the Bingley Cemetery. The Yorkshire Ripper, whose identity spurred his country's largest manhunt to that date, 1981, had taken a job as a grave digger at Bingley Cemetery in his teens and later worked at the town morgue. Ultimately convicted of 13 counts of stranger murder, he had had a close encounter at the graveyard. Peter heard a voice that led him to a particular grave. The voice now emanated from the headstone. It was just the beginning. With the passage of time, the voice began inciting him to violence, telling him that prostitutes who would become his victims were the cause of society's problems. From that point on, Peter was, quote, compelled to kill, end quote. Burns, 1985, page 38, 242, and 246. Across the Atlantic in New York, David Berkowitz, son of Sam, had a fascination with cemeteries, especially after his mother's death. Quote, I just used to have the urge to go, just hang around, talk. I used to visit all the graves there. I would, talk. I felt akin to them, end quote. David's, David's rapport with the dead is curiously reminiscent of Jim Huberty's confession that he was, quote, more comfortable with the dead than the living, end quote. Douglas and O'Shaker, 1999, page 231. Huberty was the man who, in 1984, shot up a McDonald's in San Isidro, California, killing 21 innocent persons. Jim had attended mortuary school and worked for 2 years at a funeral home. I didn't even know there was a school for mortuary. Doing what? Clearly, the instructors there should be teaching you. This should be a part of the curriculum at mortuary. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know there was such a thing. I mean, I guess I don't know. I just figured people, okay, we can help the dead. I don't know. I'm still learning, y'all. Forgive me for my ignorance. Huberty was the man who, in 1984, shot up a McDonald's in San Isidro, California, killing 21 innocent persons. Jim had attended mortuary school and worked for 2 years at a funeral home. In nearby Las Vegas, John Wayne Gacy, at age 21, also found work as an ambulance driver for Palm Mortuary and was later assigned to the mortuary itself as an attendant. I don't know why I think I could stay in a haunted house with Susan Martinez and Peter the whoever he was. Tabitha said, in the Caribbean, we are very much aware of spirit movement, but the young folks sort of brush off the elders' knowledge of these things. Wow, that's that. Sheesh. I mean, I guess everybody has their, but that seems also like with the young people that's not listening. I think I know everybody got their own choice to listen or not listen, but a whole generation of people not listening to the elders is indicative of another problem. That's a deeper problem, and that goes like what they said back here. Um, Soul murder starts at home. That comes from the home somewhere. A whole generation of people, a whole generation of people who are now parents. That this next generation that comes from them is not listening to them. Like we got to figure this out, people. Listen, excuse me. Page 265, second paragraph. In nearby Las Vegas, John Wayne Gacy, at age 12, also found work as an ambulance driver for Palm Mortuary and was later assigned to the mortuary itself as an attendant. Here, he morbidly took to sleeping in the embalming room. Quote, about that time, end quote, Dr. Rappaport would later note, quote, he was definitely borderline, end quote. Another forensic psychiatrist on the case, Dr. Freeman, pressed Gacy for further details of his job in Las Vegas. Bodies, he noted, were, quote, all around, dead things, a silver gray coffin, excuse me, a silver gray coffin with white interior, open. John got inside with the body. He wanted to feel death in the darkness. Like, bro, you crazy, crazy. End quote. T. Cahill, 1987, page 309, 323, 44, and 46. It is, right, Kizzy? This is, whew. Listen. No surprise, our rogues gallery has a statistically significant number of, quote, death workers, end quote. Ken Bianchi worked 2 years as an ambulance driver. Mark Hoffman's father was a mortician. Profiling Jack the Ripper as an unsub, yeah, profiling Jack the Ripper as an unsub, he was never caught. Douglas and O'Shaker, 2000, page 69, imagined that he might have been, quote, a mortician's helper, hospital or morgue attendant, end quote. You know what? On the Sabbath, I'm going back through here in Oahspe, and I'm going to find the, I want to say, don't quote me. I gotta find it. I want to say it's in the Book of Divinity, but I could be wrong about where it's talking about the hospital workers and stuff on the spiritual side. Everybody in the medical field probably should have a copy of Oahspe and this and these scenes Gospel of Peace. I'm just saying, oh my gosh, because right now, unless somebody is actually going through like having a class teaching, I don't know. The whole education system needs to be revamped to me, because not that you need to do away with some of the stuff. Some things need to be tweaked, but we need to add this missing piece that's got everybody off. We need to add the spiritual portion, the spiritual teaching to this, especially the hospital or all these schools, right? Where you, and especially these high target places, hospitals, uh, graveyards, and was it mortuaries. All of them training in the medical field that has anything to do, and psychiatrists too. Like it needs to be everywhere, everywhere, all fields. There needs to be a spiritual side. It don't matter if you are a farmer. Matter of fact, Scripture tells us that the Creator gives the farmer the greatest wisdom. Everybody needs to have the spirit. We need to add the spiritual portion. Hold on, listen to this. Whew, this is good. No surprise, our Rogues Gallery has a statistically significant number of, quote, death workers, end quote. Kim Bianchi worked 2 years as an ambulance driver. Mark Hoffman's father was a mortician. Profiling Jack the Ripper as an unsub, he was never caught. Douglas and O'Shaker, 2000, page 69. Imagine that he might have been, quote, a mortician's helper, hospital or morgue attendant, end quote. Charles Davis, raper and killer of five, was an ambulance driver with a unique approach to murder. He'd kill the woman and then arrange things in such a way that him what? Listen to this crap. He really had to take some time. Like, how do you even get in here to arrange this? Listen, and we do, kids. We really do. We have to create and form our own learning centers. I agree. It's our responsibility. It starts at home. It's our responsibility, right? Listen to this. Charles Davis, rapist and serial killer of five, was an ambulance driver with a unique approach to murder. He'd kill the woman and then arrange things in such a way that he himself would be assigned to pick up the body. How does that happen? Right? And this must have been like a real small town with one hospital. That I because I don't see that. Listen, Rod Farrell, double homicide of girlfriend's parents while still in high school, was recruiting friends and classmates into his little vampire coven. Many of the rites and ceremonies performed at the local cemetery. Far from the desultory effects on Gacy's or Berkowitz or Bianchi, Rod and his followers were actively seeking, quote, the embrace, end quote, of spirits, quote, readily accessible as the coffins were above ground, end quote, at the majestic St. Louis Cemetery in Kentucky. Quote, I'm not a mortal, end quote, Rod F. Aware of otherworldly beings, but in the most sinister way, Rod wanted, quote, to have other vampires join me so I can teach them the world of, I'm sorry, so I can teach them of the world beyond, end quote. Wrong type of teacher to be under. Don't go to them. Let me go back. Let me read that again. Quote, I'm not mortal, end quote. Rod F. Aware of otherworldly beings, but in the most sinister way, Rod wanted, quote, to have other vampires join me so I can teach them of the world beyond, end quote. According to his twisted logic, the greatest benefits would accrue from invoking the, quote, horned one, end quote, and, quote, messengers of the gods of prey, end quote. How successful he was. The coven indeed, quote, began to make contacts in the spirit world, end quote. And Rod, entranced, spoke of, quote, angels falling from the sky and different killings, end quote. Members began experiencing markedly paranormal states, absorbing spirit powers, producing automatic writing, communing with and joining souls, quote, that have walked the earth for thousands of years, end quote. Ongoing OBEs and undergoing ASCs, Jones 1999, 1722, page 26, 56, and 59. The last paragraph in Appendix B, and we're on page 266. Strange to say, Rod, product of a horrendous family life, attained a kind of, shall we say, anti enlightenment, a kind of inverse, perverse wisdom. His damaged psyche could own his damaged psyche could only call in malign beings or the evil ones. Almost poignant is the way this dark soul named the cemetery where his vampire cohorts convened. He called it the birthplace. Indeed, one would have to be virtually reborn to overcome the terrors of a childhood like his, filled with abuse, neglect, ignorance, hypocrisy, and shame. Whew, that was crazy. All right, y'all. So we're gonna go ahead and end this here because we already at 2 hours. It's 8:30. We're gonna read Appendix C because tomorrow we're not gonna be here because we're gonna be observing Sabbath, and Thursday when we come back, which will also be Thanksgiving, we will start. Well, when we get over here, we're gonna read Appendix C, and it may be the only thing that we read. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how much time. Yeah, because I know some people spending time with their family, up cooking or whatever. If you still celebrate, I don't know. But we'll probably just read that appendix, and then Friday we'll start with chapter 5, which is entitled I Shall Walk the Sky. So let me put the pages for this appendix here too. 362. That was pages, I don't know why I keep saying 3. Page 262 to page 266. And we read pick back up. Oh, here on page 113. Well, actually, we went to the bottom page 112. 112 to 114. Okay. All right, beautiful people. Put this together. Here. 47. Went to 40. Writing it on the wrong place. Okay. I'm going to have to move it. $12. 262. I'm getting it together, y'all. 266. We're going to pick up here. 267. In appendix. Yeah, okay. I pull my notes together. All right, beautiful people. Thank y'all for hanging out today. It is Tuesday, November the 22nd, 2022, day 270 of year 4, reading the books of the law and prophets, another 4-year consecutive day count, day 1289. We read a little bit more in Oahspe from the book of Ashong, son of Jehovah, pages 44 to page 46. And we hopped over to the Field Guide to the Spirit World page. We read pages 112 to 114. Then we hopped to the back in the appendix, which um it gave us the reference to when we read Appendix B, and that was pages 262 to 266. Father, we thank you for daily enlightenment and how important it is that we understand what we truly are and how we should be operating in spirit at all times, even in conjunction with our daily human tasks that we are to do. We should incorporate spirit at all times because we are spirit. This is good today, this reading Appendix B. And not, like I said, I'd listened to this twice and I'd read halfway through it like the third time. But, just I listen to it while I go. But some stuff I clearly miss. And it's like when I read it out loud, it's like the first time. There's a difference from like reading it and listening to it than reading it out loud. Because when you're reading it out loud, you're getting it in a couple different ways and your comprehension is just expanding, and you catch things that you miss just by listening to it because you be zoning out and stuff, doing other things. But this is good. All right, y'all. So with that being said, thank everybody for hanging out. And if I missed y'all coming in, sorry. But greetings. Thanks for hanging out. And everybody here hanging out in the background. I love y'all. Let me go check on my family. I got to get juicing and stuff. All right. I see y'all back here Thursday, 6:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.